Hi, I've been putting off making this video for ages, and I'm really excited to finally be sitting down and talking to you, because this is a story that is so deeply entwined with the whole progression of life story therapies, how I came to develop it, and I've been holding it very tightly to my chest. It's the story of how I came to develop life story as a therapeutic tool. And I've not told this story, not properly. And when I reflect as to why, I think it's the same reason so many of us don't tell our stories. Because it matters, because it's precious, because it's so deeply personal. And I can feel myself getting emotional, even just thinking about sharing this story with you. And I need to tell you the story of how I developed life story as a therapeutic tool, because it is absolutely the bedrock of my work with third culture kids, with anybody with a complicated life story. So here goes. I first started practicing telling this story as I've encountered more therapists and counsellors, partly through my own training as a counsellor, partly through those wonderful circumstances that just throw us in the path of people doing really interesting work themselves. And I had a great opportunity last week to tell this story, to explain why I use life story as a methodology, why it's so dear to me, and why I absolutely believe in it. And in telling my story and realizing that people got it, that they're excited by it too, that this has potential for people in counselling journeys and relationships with people who maybe aren't third culture kids, people who are working with different demographics, people that could see the potential in what I've developed, was really affirming. And this shouldn't surprise me, because this is what I tell people. I say, tell me your story, and I will accept it, and I will affirm it, and I will honour it, and that will matter. That will change something about how you hear your own story. And I was experiencing that for myself last week. So here it is. Here is my story about life story therapy. I first stumbled across life story interviewing as a methodological tool used in sociology, which was the field I was working in at the time. This was during my doctoral work studying third culture kids, and I needed a data collection tool that would mitigate the effects of myself being an insider researcher. I am a third culture kid studying third culture kids, so the thing that I'm going to get whacked with when other academics look at my work is, you're biased. This is really your story you've projected onto everybody else. And I knew that qualitative work, research was the way that I was going to get the information I needed to tell these TCK stories. But I couldn't afford to use leading questions. I couldn't afford to get too specific about how I extracted my data, because I needed to make sure that these were absolutely other people's stories, that I wasn't filtering the information I was receiving. And so life story interviewing came into my life as this academic methodological tool that was going to save the day, and it did. It did its job, but it did something extra that I hadn't foreseen. And in my Viva I was asked, was there anything that surprised you about your results? And reflecting on that made me realise that the thing that surprised me most was how much it mattered to people to tell their story. How we don't do that. We don't take 2 hours out of our life and tell everything. We tell the story they want to hear. And TCKs, we can be very, very good at guessing the story they want to hear. And this was something new. This said, okay, you can tell me the TCK filter. You can tell me what you think I want to hear about your ideas around home and belonging and place, but tell me the rest too. Tell me everything. Tell me you. And that opened up a place for competing identities to kind of swim in the same sea. And instead of colliding with each other, they just got to coexist. Just for a short time and in a place, and it was magic. And I remember as a researcher going, whoa, this is beyond the remit of my study, but I'm logging this. And so when it came to finishing up my thesis, passing, and then thinking, now what? I thought I've got to run with this, because there's something more here that Life Story can do. There's something therapeutic fundamentally about this process, and I've got to get this out there. So I started playing around with how I could take this broad methodological approach and apply it to a individual's journey in personal growth. And that was a bit complicated because I'd been looking at coding data, which you do within story, but you also then cross-compare. So without being able to compare one client's story to another client's story, which of course doesn't make sense in terms of an individual's journey, I needed to find a way of just fine-tuning this method. And a lot of scribbling, a lot of thinking, a lot of time later, I thought, yeah, okay, we've got something here. And I've slowly over time, I developed the idea and I founded Life Story Therapies in 2015. So I've been doing this a few years now, and it's coalesced and it's clarified, and it's become Life Story Analysis and Accompaniment, because the analysis bit is the bit developed during my research years, pre-2015. The analysis bit is the bit that goes, okay, what story is your story telling me? What are the stories within stories? What words are being used? What narrative form is being used? What themes are emerging here? On a sort of grounded theory type side of things with the sociology, you talk about this kind of bottom-up thematic approach. What themes are emerging? What just keeps coming back? These become the major themes, the major patterns that we can work with. And that was really exciting. And I also realised that I needed to develop Life Story as a therapeutic tool, because beyond its methodological usefulness for me as a sociologist, as a therapist, it also, similarly as it did in academia, avoided the temptation that I might have to funnel and focus and misdiagnose through overlooking the whole context by honing in on obvious problem areas in my client. Now, those obvious problem areas might be things that they come with. I've got this issue, I've got that issue, these are my current challenges. Or it might be my own bias, my own assumptions, my own, yeah, I've seen this before. And I thought, I need this methodology that is going to force me to stay open. It's bedded into the structure of how I work, and not just reliant on me being open-minded that day. It is absolutely structurally there, founding everything, that we hear everything, that there is a context that we're going to put and place these insights into particular challenges into. That we don't exist in a vacuum, that we didn't wake up one day and decide we have attachment issues, that there is a pattern here. And if we can make sure we keep all the variables in play, we don't miss things, we don't misdiagnose, we don't mislabel ourselves. And fundamentally, we make more sense. And if there's anything that brings hope when we feel like we're going crazy, it's the founding belief that we make sense, and our stories do that for us. And Life Story as a therapeutic tool does that for me as a practitioner. And we want to hear our stories, and we want them to be heard. I was reading this morning a draft by an author who's just blowing my mind. I'm halfway through it because I can't put it down. I've only started this morning. And she's telling part of my story. She's writing experiences that are deep within me. And she's finding the words to express feelings that I have. And I can hear my story being validated just off these pages, and that's what therapy should do. And so I developed Life Story, interviewing Life Story, analysis and accompaniment as a therapeutic tool because our stories matter and we need to be heard. And there's no better way to kick off a therapeutic relationship, in my opinion, no better way to kick off therapeutic change and growth, in my opinion, than starting with our story and feeling heard. Absolutely fundamental. I'm aware that this video is getting really long because I want to share. I want to explain why I do what I do with confidence, and take this precious little thing that isn't little, that's massive and that matters, and that is the way I work. And the way I work that I haven't just tripped over. This is developed because it works. And I think it would work for you. And if you're interested in hearing more about Life Story Therapy as a tool, about learning how to do it, about being a client with me, working within that framework, get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. This is my precious little story, but I think it maybe can be yours too. And I needed to share that with you today to make that happen. Thank you for watching. Take care of you. This is Life Story Therapies. I'm Rachel Kaysen, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye.